Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Video Clips. And just a couple of reminders. I am going to teach two more modules of the Cancer 201 course, which is alternative treatments. I just added a 12th one, which is Rife Technology. Next ones coming up are going to be DMSO and HOXI. And what I'm doing over time is creating this library of curated, vetted analyses of alternative cancer treatments for people to study on their own. So if you're in the Cancer 201 course, every couple weeks I do a video once I have all the material together. They're one topic per, but there are 12 videos posted already on the Cancer 201 site. And then the other thing I wanted to remind you about is Kylie Rohrabach, our phenomenal therapist, is doing conference call therapy for anxiety and depression, specific COVID-related anxiety and depression. She has an adolescent group. A lot of people have been helped by this. So if you're interested in any of this stuff, send me an email at pampopper@msn.com. I'll either get you to the right person to talk to or send you more details or whatever is most appropriate. All right, so on Wednesdays, I talk about things that are a little bit personal, and I also sometimes report what other inspirational and influential people have had to say. And today, the information I'm going to share with you came from the Epoch Times. I think one of the better independent journalism newspapers and online sites. It's where I get a lot of information. And this is called The Story of a Vietnam War Veteran, the Stockdale Paradox. And once I share with you what this is about, then I'll tell you what I think it has to do with our current circumstances. So September 9th, 1965 was a life-changing day for James Stockdale. It was the day that his Douglas A-4 Skyhawk was shot out of the sky, forcing him to eject to save his own life. The North Vietnamese captured the American admiral that very day, but little did they know that they would take in a very troublesome prisoner. They detained Stockdale at the Hoa Lo prison, the infamous Hanoi Hilton. He soon established communications among the American prisoners of war and a code of rules to organize the prisoners and boost their morale. When the abuse of American POWs reached a climax in 1969, Stockdale was selected by his captors as a trophy for their propaganda. Knowing he wouldn't be paraded if he was disfigured, he cut his own scalp with a razor and then beat his own face with a wooden stool, foiling his captors' plans. After Stockdale found out that several POWs had been tortured to death, he slit his own wrist to show that he would rather die than capitulate to his captors. From that night on, the practice of torturing American POWs stopped in the facility. Stockdale finally returned home to the United States in 1973 after a 7.5-year stint in prison. In 1976, he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroism. Once, Stockdale had invited Jim Collins, a management scholar, out to lunch. Collins asked Stockdale about how he persevered while in Vietnam. Here's what he said, quote, "I never lost faith in the end of the story," replied Stockdale. "I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life, which in retrospect I would not trade." Collins then asked about the kinds of people who didn't make it out of the Hanoi Hilton. "The optimists," came the response, and then Stockdale just explained. "Oh, they were the ones who said we're going to be out by Christmas, and Christmas would come and Christmas would go, and they'd say we're going to be out by Easter, and Easter would come and Easter would go, and then Thanksgiving, and it would be Christmas again, and they died of a broken heart." After a moment of silence, Stockdale finished his thought. "This is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be." Collins would later codify this into his coaching regime as the Stockdale Paradox to help business leaders who are facing challenges, which is sound reasoning. After all, if this thinking can help a soldier survive POW camp, there are very few things it can't help with. We're not experiencing, this is my comments about this, we're not experiencing anything like the horrors of being a prisoner of war, and for that we can be grateful. And by the way, gratitude is one of the ways in which we will all survive this ordeal. Dr. Peter Breggin, the eminent psychiatrist, says that it's almost impossible to be depressed and hopeless when in a state of gratitude about something. And I think there's always something to be grateful for if we just take the time to figure out what it is. Faith is helpful in the outcome, and as Stockdale says, faith doesn't mean happy thoughts. Faith means, to me, you reach deep down into your soul and you find the strength of spirit it takes to survive adversity. It says, I'll allow myself to be vulnerable, to have feelings and to cry and to despise the situation that I'm in, but I will not allow myself to be helpless and hopeless. But faith alone is not enough. Notice that Stockdale took action when he arrived at the camp. He did something. The optimistic people who sat back and thought happy thoughts and did nothing, they did not survive, nor did they help anybody else to survive either. So those of us who are understanding, who do understand what's going on right now, are called to do something. We have to do something. You can't just sit back and say, well, I'm sure it's all going to come out in the end. It'll be okay. You know, last week I posted a video, or 2 weeks ago, I lose track of the time because every day is the same here. I just work, right? But I posted a video about what 80 million people could do. I mean, here we see what one person can do, and I've talked about that. And then we can talk about what could 80 million of us could do when we're all banded together to solve this problem. And it was very interesting, the types of responses that I got. Some people said, put me to work. I want to be one of 80 million people who solve this problem. Other people said, add me to the list, add you to the list, because 80 million people who get added to a list will certainly take care of everything. Now, it's going to take 80 million people who rise up and pool their resources and speaking in a very loud voice in unison and making their wishes known and filing lawsuits. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's going to free us from tyranny. So I think the lesson that we take from all of this, and the lesson that I've taken from it, I'm an optimistic person by nature. I do believe that we're going to come out of this and it's going to be okay. I do believe that I can do a lot to make that happen. But a half a dozen to a dozen people in Ohio who are working really, really hard on your behalf. We can't solve this problem for 337 million of you. So you have to step up. You have to send me an email and say, I don't just want to be added to the list. I want to know what I can do that will really, really help you change this. And I don't expect anybody to do what I'm doing. But you know, starting Thursday groups and recruiting other people and all that, we can all find people to join us and be on board. So yes, there's hope, and we've seen people survive far worse things than we have to deal with now. And again, we can be grateful that things aren't worse, but the only way we're going to keep them from getting worse, and the only way we're going to make them better, is when we all start working hard to make them better. And I'll tell you, this is, I think, one of the reasons why I've kept my sanity through all of this. First of all, I work on keeping my sanity, and I do a lot of things like yoga and exercise and try to take care of myself and all that kind of thing. But there's something about feeling like you're contributing to fixing it that makes you more confident that it's going to be fixed, and also makes you feel productive. There's nothing worse than feeling helpless, and it's hard to feel helpless when you're actively engaged in working on the solution to the problem. So join me. Let me help you feel more optimistic by putting you to work. All right, thanks for watching. As usual, pass this on to other people who are interested in a different view of this entire event, and I'll be back to you tomorrow with more news.